nation is reeling this week after a TV news crew was killed and another person was seriously injured during a live on-camera interview. An ex-employee of WDBJ TV in Virginia shot to death reporter Allison Parker and cameraman Adam Ward while they were interviewing Vicki Gardner, who remains hospitalized for her injuries. Governor Mike Pence weighed in on the tragedy via Twitter, saying that he's grieved by the WDBJ shooting and that his thoughts and prayers go out to the victims and their families. CEO Todd Schertz of Schertz Communication in Mishawaka, Indiana, which owns WDBJ, released a statement saying his company is heartbroken at this tragic and senseless loss. He went on to commend Parker and Ward, saying they were involved in the most important aspect of journalism, telling the stories important to their local communities. The suspected shooter, Vester Flanagan, worked as a reporter at WDBJ for less than a year before being fired in February of 2013. He died shortly after the shooting from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The last candidate standing in the race to snag the Democratic Party's nomination for governor of Indiana paid a visit to the region this week. John Gregg, a native of Sanborn, Indiana, was in Maryville to rally union support for his candidacy. Not only has Gregg secured the backing of the UAW, but he also recently garnered the support of Gary Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson. Gregg appeared at a Northern Indiana Operators Joint Labor Management fundraiser on Tuesday at IUOE Local 150. The candidate says he's grateful for all the union support he's received and that he'll do everything he can to fight for a working wage for every Hoosier.
It allows a person to have a home. It allows a person to be able to take their family on vacation. It allows that person the dignity should their child decide to learn a trade or a craft or go to Ivy Tech or one of the other state universities to help that child go to college. That's what a living wage is. So we are real excited. We've gotten endorsements from all the building and trades, and now with the steel workers, which of course are the largest union in the state, the auto workers and the umbrella group of the AFL, we're really excited about it.
Gregg spent 16 years in the Indiana House of Representatives, including 6 as Speaker, and is the former president of Vincennes University. Northwest Indiana legislators are going to have to do some homework. They've been appointed to study committees making recommendations to the State House that may impact future legislation. State Representative Charlie Brown of Gary has been appointed to 4 committees dealing with either public health, public policy, or roads and transportation. East Chicago State Representative Donna Harris has been named to the County Redistricting Commission, as well as the Lake Michigan Marina and Shoreline Development Commission. State Representative Linda Lawson of Hammond, Portage State Representative Chuck Mosley, Michigan City House Democratic leader Scott Pelath, and Gary State Representative Vernon Smith have been appointed to committees studying everything from corrections and criminal code to pension management oversight and data processing. A record number of people are working in Indiana, more than 2.6 million. That's according to the Indiana Economic Development Corporation, or IEDC. That group was in the region this week to see how they can keep that momentum going. Officials from the corporation were in Lake County as part of their Indiana Regional Cities Tour. They made a pit stop at the Northern Indiana Commuter Transportation District headquarters and visited some picturesque landmarks. They tweeted pictures of plans to improve parts of the South Shore train line by elevating tracks, adding double tracks, and building additional elevated platforms. The commission members also stopped by 18th Street Brewery in Gary and took in the views at Whiting Park. The Regional Cities Initiative enables the state to be a financial partner with regional groups. A spokesperson for IEDC says they will use the tours to gather information about plans for regional growth that will be presented at an event later this year. Organizers of the Indiana Bicentennial and Torch Relay were in Northwest Indiana to update local officials on their role in the statewide celebration. In a meeting hosted by the South Shore Convention and Visitors Authority, officials with the Indiana Bicentennial Commission and the Indiana Torch Relay answered questions about how local groups and individuals can participate in the celebrations. Officials also discussed how local events can become bicentennial legacy events. Legacy events will be state endorsed and part of the official record of bicentennial celebrations.
One significant thing I always talk about, it's important to leave a legacy. We want to celebrate our history, but we also need to look ahead. The state park system was a legacy that was left behind from our centennial celebration. So obviously conservation, we're focused on youth and education, community. Everything's very important. We don't want to just celebrate our past, but we need to be forward thinking also.
A major component of the bicentennial, the Torch Relay, begins September 9th, 2016 at the state capitol and will travel 2,300 miles through each of Indiana's 92 counties. For more information, you can contact indiana2016.org. The Americans with Disabilities Act is celebrating 25 years of helping to safeguard the rights of the disabled, and local disability advocates are holding a celebratory event. ADA 25 Years and Counting will be on display at the Indiana Welcome Center at 7770 Corrine Drive in Hammond from now until Sunday, September 27th. The exhibit features interactive displays and information about the past 25 years of the ADA. Sponsors of the exhibit include Everybody Counts, the Chicago-based Great Lakes ADA Network, and the South Shore Convention and Visitors Authority. One highlight of the exhibit, the work of photojournalist Tom Olin. Olin's Access is a Civil Right photo gallery features photos taken throughout the 30-year struggle for passage of the ADA. Organizers are hoping to educate people about how the ADA seeks to improve the quality of life for the disabled, their families, and the larger community.
I'd like people to recognize that the ADA is a civil right. It protects the right of people with disabilities, and that those people are part of the community. It's not a separate group of individuals. It's all of us. It's your neighbor, your son, your co-worker, that people with disabilities are part of the community.
The ADA exhibit at the Indiana Welcome Center is free and open to the public from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily. A local school corporation is using community partners to give students a leg up on the future, and a Region Economic Alliance is forging business partnerships to build a strong and profitable future for Northwest Indiana. Those stories just ahead on Lakeshore Report.
Lakeshore Report wants to hear from you. Send your thoughts, concerns, questions, and story ideas to tvfeedback@lakeshorepublicmedia.org. You can also reach us on Facebook and Twitter at Lakeshore Report. Make sure to tweet us using the hashtag NWIPride and you may see your comments on air. Lakeshore Report, providing you region-focused content.
The Gary school system has been plagued with underfunding, low test scores, the inability to pay their vendors, and maintain schools that are literally crumbling into ruin. Now, with much needed funding help from the state legislature and the governor, and increased graduation rates at some schools, officials are starting this academic year with renewed hopes. Lakeshore's Stephen Lattimore was on hand as the children headed back to class, and he files this report.
Despite all the obstacles that school officials have had to deal with trying to educate the children here in Gary, they say they're going to make sure that they get the same education as schools in other districts. That means that they'll expand the programs that work and get rid of the ones that don't. The nearly 7,000 students in the Gary public school system are beginning this year with a lot of hope for a good year ahead.
We don't wait till the first day to get organized, so therefore everybody knows exactly where the students are to go. And we send robocalls home to the parents so parents know where the students are to report the first thing on the first day.
The district will consider expanding new programs like Middle College, which gives middle students a chance to experience college, and partnerships like Curb Appeal, where local leaders donate materials and time to paint and fix up local schools. Then there are the relationships with local colleges and universities.
Last year we started our partnership with DeVry University as well as Calumet College. We actually took the students to the campus and their dual credit offerings were held at those campuses. We want our students to see themselves on a college or university setting.
Parents and students are excited to get back to school.
I got to hear because the way things are now, kids need to get all the education they can get because it's going to be hard. It's harder for us adults nowadays.
School has a very high expectancy that they put on the girls as far as educationally wise, as well as socially, and just the total development of the overall morale of the girls is definitely a good atmosphere to be in.
I was excited so I could see my friends again and so I could do more hard work to accomplish my goals and stuff.
But some parents are concerned about their special ed students.
My daughter's a special needs child. This is her first year, third grade. The past 2 years, she was in a smaller classroom setting. She had probably approximately about 9 or 10 students in her class. And this year, she was thrown into a class where it was 35 to 40 students. And I just don't feel that she's going to be comfortable enough in a classroom that big coming from a smaller class setting.
One of the things we've learned in about 40 years worth of doing special education, tons of research out there says that special education in and of itself in an isolated classroom doesn't work. We know that educating our students best, they are more successful being exposed to the general education environment with general education students.
The superintendent is also planning to copy the college model and build an endowment to help fund the schools better.
At a development office, because whether or not the tax rate decreases or continues to decrease, whether or not the state decides that they don't want to fund public education, our children still must be educated.
The superintendent says her goal is to get her students into colleges, universities, or trade schools, and that's her roadmap for success. In Gary, Stephen Lattimore, Lakeshore Report.
Earlier this month, the Chicago area industrial firm announced it would be moving its operations to Northwest Indiana. The Lake County Economic Alliance was instrumental in attracting the firm to the Hoosier State. Its mission? To better market abandoned or underutilized industrial buildings. The head of the alliance sat down with Lakeshore Report's Michael Puente to talk about the group's efforts.
Thank you, Kristen. Well, I'm here right now with Don Kolobowski. He's Vice President of Economic Development for the Lake County Economic Alliance. Don's firm played a key role in attracting Hoist lift truck from suburban Chicago to East Chicago, Indiana just this month. Don, can you just tell me a little bit about your firm and what role you played in attracting Hoist lift truck to East Chicago?
Lake County Economic Alliance is an economic development non-for-profit corporation serving all of Lake County. With regards to Hoist, they had contacted our organization about 8 to 9 months ago, asking specifics about doing business in Indiana.
Now, what is the main focus of your firm? Why did you come together?
We came together because there wasn't a consolidated effort for the entire county. Coming from the Northwest Indiana Forum, a 7-county group, we had a regional focus. The other 6 counties had a county alliance. Lake County did not.
Now, did you see a need for development of sort of underutilized industrial sites in Lake County?
Definitely. There are a lot of underutilized sites on the north end of the county and a lot of business parks and Class A business parks and green space on the south end. So it's a very diverse county.
Now, how do you market those? Is it through publications, through word of mouth? How do you do that?
Multimedia publications, Chicago Industrial Property Outlets, conferences, statewide, nationwide, site selectors, email blasts, all forms of media.
Now, we know about Hoist lift truck, but is this effort already becoming fruitful in other areas or attracting other companies?
Yes, definitely. We were very fortunate because of the aged industrial facilities. We had a lot of companies invest in the northern sector in Hammond, Gary, and East Chicago, and Hoist is one of those. We also are working with companies here in Maryville and Hobart, Munster, Dyer, unincorporated Lake County as well.
Are you surprised that this effort hadn't been around previously before the alliance came together?
Well, Lake County has always been fragmented. So, over 20 municipalities, none of them really working together with regards to the economic development process. So we were surprised by the quick results that we've been receiving, and that's been a shock to a lot of us.
Now, where are you marketing your campaign towards? Is it around the country, Midwest, or maybe just Chicago?
Well, Chicago's a big market for us in the Indiana Economic Development Corporation. Obviously, geographically speaking, we're their neighbors to the east. There are a lot of opportunities, and the downside in the Illinois economy has helped Indiana attract businesses and jobs. But we also are focused on national companies. One of the companies that invests in East Chicago is from Pennsylvania, for example.
Now, we do know, you said the state of Indiana through the Economic Development Corp, they're providing incentives for companies to move to Northwest Indiana. They played a key role in Hoist. Are they also kind of partnering with the alliance to lure more companies?
They were one of the original investors and one of the original creators of the Indiana Economic Alliance, the Lake County Economic Alliance. They play a critical role. The state plays a critical role. They're not going to choose community over community. They represent the state. NIPSCO played a critical role. Crossroads Regional Chamber and the Lakeshore Chamber also played a critical role in the creation of the LCEA.
Are you surprised at the early success the LCEA is having?
We are surprised, but we are not surprised in the activity levels, but we're a bit surprised and taken back by all the municipal governments working together and relying on us, and that's been a very pleasant surprise.
Not to put you too much on the spot, but what's going to be the next big news, the next big company that's going to move to Northwest Indiana?
One will be announcing 2 projects within the next 2 weeks, one in Hammond and one in the southern part of the county. You will hear 4 to 5 projects by the end of the year, over 750 jobs.
Well, Don Kalabowski is Vice President of Economic Development for the Lake County Economic Alliance. I want to thank Don for coming here on Lakeshore Report and joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Mike.
Don. Thank you.
It's time for The Times, our exclusive sneak preview of some of the top stories in this Sunday's Northwest Indiana Times. Occasionally, we'll talk to the reporters behind some of those stories in the state's second largest newspaper. This week, Times staff writer Doug Ross takes a look at the age of some Hoosier politicians and asks the question, how old is too old?
The story about Jerry Shub appeared last weekend in Wednesday's paper. He's been around, if he runs for re-election, that would be his 6th term. He'd be 80 years old at this time. It made some of us start talking about, is there a retirement age for politicians? And really, there's no self-imposed age. Now, Indiana has, for judges, there's a retirement age of 75. There are, concerns about, the older you get, the more medical issues that might arise. There was a county councilman in Porter County a number of years ago, back in the 80s, who kept falling asleep during the meetings because, he was up there in years and in his 80s. It's a really tough one because, how do you know what your health's going to be like in 4 or 6 years? That's certainly true for anybody of any age, but problems are a lot more likely to arise the older you get. How do you get the new voices in there? How do you retain the voice of experience and still develop the voice of tomorrow? The question is, how are you developing them, and when are you feeling ready to really let go and let someone else?
And don't forget, for more information on any of our stories, you can go to lakeshorepublicmedia.org. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you next time on Lakeshore Report.
After Bobby Cox retired, he wasn't doing much of anything.
Sometimes it's hard for me to get up and move.
For Carol Miller, living alone means it's especially important for her memory and thinking to remain clear.
I have to be in charge of a household and an automobile and my health.
They both participated in a 2-year study that included more than 1,600 sedentary adults between the ages of 70 and 89. Dr. Casey Sink from Wake Forest Baptist Medical Center and co-authors divided the seniors into 2 groups. Bobby was in the physical activity group.
The goal was to get folks to walk at least 30 minutes at moderate intensity. We also did some lower extremity strength and some flexibility exercises.
Instead of exercise, Carol's group attended health education seminars on different topics of interest to seniors.
We measured how they were thinking, what their memory and complex processing and language function at the very start of the study.
I want you to say the name of each picture.
Acorn, dominoes.
And then we measured it again at 2 years after they had been participating.
The study appears in JAMA, Journal of the American Medical Association.
Both groups preserved their cognitive function over the course of 2 years. They stayed the same, which is really remarkable because we would have expected older adults in this age range to have declined at least some over 2 years.
Bobby is exercising almost every day, and Carol stays active by spending time with her grandchildren.
Older adults should stay active physically, cognitively, and socially. All of those things are important to maintaining independence and cognitive function as you age.
Catherine Dolph, The JAMA Report.
Hi, joining me for this edition of Eye on the Arts is Jessie Renslow, who is involved with the Neighborhood Spotlight Project in Miller Beach. Welcome, Jessie.
Thank you.
So, as you call it, the convening organization for Neighborhood Spotlight in Miller is the Miller Beach Arts and Creative District. This is a project primarily, though, led by or driven by the Legacy Foundation. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Saying that?
It's interesting with Neighborhood Spotlight. Legacy is the funding organization, and then neighborhoods across Lake County applied for the grant. There were 18,
Right.
and of those 18, 2 actually received it: Northwest Hobart and Miller in Gary. And our territory for our grant is a really concentrated area. It goes from County Line to Clay Street to 12, Route 12. So that's what the grant actually covers. And then we partnered with a local 501c3, and that's the Arts District.
So what's the purpose of Neighborhood Spotlight?
The purpose is to get a grassroots movement focused on revitalizing a very specific area.
And the project started when?
Technically last year. How it works is neighborhood residents get together and they go to meetings that are sponsored by Legacy. They have to go through this whole training process, then apply for the grant, then find out if they have it, get it, then hire a community builder, and then the actual planning part starts.
And how long will you be active as the community builder?
Well, the project itself is supposed to be 3 years, so nothing's for sure, but hopefully they'll have me next year. But yeah, so the first year is the actual grant writing stage. Right now we're in the middle of the second year, and then the third year is implementing the plan. So my group conducted SWOT analysis, which sounds kind of scary, but it's one-on-one interviews where they ask folks what they thought the strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats to that specific area, that neighborhood. I know like Emerson, I think, is applying for it next year, so if they get it, that's great, and then they'll do it only for Emerson. So from that, we had 203 interviews. For the purpose of the grant, we only need to have 100. We're still interviewing folks, though, because we're going to do a second addition to the report. I'd like to get 500 to 1,000 interviews, because that would be 5 to 10% of our population. And from our 203 interviews, we had 4,013 comments, which I know Hobart had about the same amount of interviews, but they only had about 2,500 comments. So I think people in Miller might just be chattier. So I got to synthesize.
They have a lot of creative people in Miller.
Yeah, you know, like they have a lot. They're passionate. So I got to synthesize the comments, and so from that we have a report. If anybody's interested, I can provide that information. It's off of our blog, and it's a 147-page report, all about folks' perceptions of the area, because it's not a fact-based report. And from that, 7 themes emerged, and that's what people will be working with for the planning stages.
So that's where you're heading.
Yeah.
For now. So then the report will be done in 2 more years, and you'll have recommendations for projects that can be carried out.
Well, what happens is from the 7 themes that emerged from the report, a lot of emerging communities have the similar ones, you know, safety and code enforcement, education and child youth programming, environment and ecotourism. We've got a couple others, but we have action groups, and volunteers have signed up for them. Today I actually have 2 workshops for the action groups, and they'll meet 3 to 6 times between now and October 9th, and they will construct goals that are reasonable, and they'll go into our community plan. And the community plan will be rolled out in November, and then we will implement it next year. So the idea.
Well, we'll have to have you back
to
tell us with more progress as it unfolds. Okay, well, good work. Thank you, Jessie, for being here.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for watching. We'll be back again next week with another edition of Eye on the Arts.
Eye on the Arts is made possible in part by South Shore Arts, the Indiana Arts Commission, and the National Endowment for the Arts, a federal agency.